Welcome to Riverstone Reviews. Today we're going to be going over my video, Live and Die in the Expanse, and the gender differentiation that is going on between the men and the women, those who live, those who die, and how they die. Now, this is something that has been occurring over the course of the show, but has really come to a climax in the most recent season, making very distinctive difference between the men and women and how they're being treated. This is not a complete list. I'm going to be going through men and women who've died. There are people who aren't on this list. The people on this list have shown up as late as the end of the third season, beginning of the fourth season, that those stated alive are currently, according to the show, still alive, and therefore have a chance to show up again on the show. Also, we will be looking at what this means for the show going forward. Now, I have a list here that I've separated into men and women, so why don't we just jump into the list and take a look at it. As far as the men, Jim Holden is still alive, but his tasks have really turned to simping for Naomi. This past season, he's basically disregarded all the plight of Protomolecule, the battle going on, and went to go after Naomi to rescue her, and he did rescue her. Amos is still alive, but he's turned into a puppy dog for Clarissa. Marcus is now the main villain, and he's still alive. He is Naomi's ex, and he hates Naomi and represents control and disdain for women. His son Philip, Naomi's son, is still alive, but he's angry at women and his own mother. He's even hit his own mother. And he represents the masculinity that's toxic and being passed down through the generations. Alex is dead. He died of a stroke. Now, we do understand that he was removed from the show. There were allegations of sexual harassment. If, in fact, he did these things, he should be removed from the show. Detective Miller is dead. He sacrificed himself for a woman, Julie Mao. Fred Johnson is dead. He was assassinated by a woman, one of the rebels for Marcus who was pretending to be part of Fred Johnson's crew. Diago, a rebel boy, killed by Naomi, he's dead. Kutayar, a spy, is dead. He sacrificed himself for a woman, Avasarola. Ashford is dead. He surrendered himself to Marcus and was pushed out an airlock. Sin is dead. He died in the airlock trying to stop a woman, Naomi, from jumping out into space. So out of that list, there are 4 alive, 7 dead, 2 antagonists, and 2 protagonists. Now let's go to the women character. Avasarola is alive, and she's currently been moved to president after replacing an incompetent male. Naomi is alive. She survived floating in space, radiation, and attacks. Bobby is alive. She survived an attack from a protomolecule mutant and many criminal ambushes. Kamina is alive. She survived being crushed in the cargo bay of the Leviathan. Clarissa Mao is alive, and she's free to kill whoever she wants. Monica, the reporter, she's alive, and now she's serving on Holden's crew as a consultant. Dr. Okoyote is alive. She was the artifact doctor on the artifact planet who dragged Detective Miller to the portal so he could kill himself, but when she entered the portal, she survived and was fine. Reverend Volovolodov is alive. She was the consultant for the presidents who ended up revealing that the presidents were bad people. Dr. Mazur is alive. She was on the artifact planet, and she was part of the bomber crew who killed the Earthers, but because she said she was tricked and blamed it on the men, she is forgiven and is still alive. Chandra was killed. She was killed by Amos, but she was torn between being in love with Amos and following the other leader, the male, who I'm not sure of his name, but she was basically following 2 men and killed for that. So out of this list of 10 women, 9 of them alive, 1 is dead, 9 are protagonists, and 0 are antagonists. Now, the problem I'm outlining here is that primarily men are killed, and often under circumstances that the women characters can easily survive. They actually were either killed by women or sacrificed themselves for women, and the only one who wasn't was Ashford, who was killed by Marcus and just pushed out an airlock after surrendering. His very unceremonious death. The men are split between being puppy dog heroes and villains who abuse and control women. They're also sending a message that the women can survive anything, things that the men can't, and the only woman killed was Sandra, who was in fact following men. Anyone who's watched my videos knows I don't complain if a show or a film is dominated by women, or if they decide to replace male characters with females. That is a production's right and can represent an aspect of an audience that the company chooses to reach. However, what I can't ignore is when one side is dominating at the expense of bashing another, that the men are killed off in silly and unglorious deaths, while the women battle through deadly situations and survive, that the only two male heroes are fighting for and following women, while none of the women left are showing that same fortitude to protect the males. Building this into a story completely weakens the strength of The Expanse as a series and as a world, and creates a predictability. Did anyone, no matter what they put Naomi through, believe for a second that she was not going to survive this past season? Did anyone think for a second that the whole journey with Clarissa on Earth wasn't supposed to end up with her on the Rocinante? I can tell you right now that James Holden will survive in the show as long as they have him following and willing to set anything aside for Naomi. That Amos will survive as long as they need him to contrast Clarissa to show how much stronger she is than him and how much smarter she is than him. But I believe they would kill off Amos if they can get the fan base to make her more popular than Amos. Marcus will be eventually defeated by a woman, most likely Naomi or Kamina, and Philip will most likely have to die, but before he does, he will have to repent his ways to show that Naomi was a wonderful mother and really did have an impact on him. All this is nothing but a distraction for the show. Instead of having both men and women die, and die in heroic acts, which build great anticipation in the seasonal events to who will live and die, and how their deaths will become part of the greater success towards restoring system balance and defeating the protomolecule, I watched this last season waiting to see which men they were going to kill off, which women were going to survive impossible situations. And I really didn't care less about the bigger story because I know those creating the show have made it clear that the story in the world are not as important as making statements on gender right now. These shows are destroying the longevity of the franchises. In an era of streaming, unlike the time of reruns where fans had to wait a long time to see a show get rebroadcast, people can jump in whenever they want. And the key is, more than ever, a show must have a strong final season or ending seasons. If not, new fans will get wind that later seasons suck or fail to pay off, and audiences will decide why bother streaming 3 seasons if the last 2 seasons are going to be a letdown and don't satisfactorily resolve the show. Game of Thrones should be a lesson for that. All the show had to do was maintain some of the quality and integrity of earlier seasons, and not even be as good, and the show would have still been heavily sought out to be watched and rewatched. But since the show has ended, HBO lost half of its viewers. There are 1 billion people in the world who have not seen Game of Thrones. Over 300 million Americans have not seen Game of Thrones. If the show had a decent ending, every person who left HBO after the show ended would have been replaced by new viewers who didn't see the show and couldn't wait to see it. But since it's no secret that the last season was not only bad, but fans hated how the show ended so much, there were petitions started to change the ending. So whatever Game of Thrones would have gained in future audience, they lost, destroying their own show. The Expanse will be no different. Season 5 was pointless. Other than the attack on Earth, nothing in the show changed from Season 4. If I told someone at the end of Season 4 that all you have to know is Fred Johnson was killed, Alex is dead, and Clarissa joins the Rocinante crew, a person could go from Season 4 to Season 6 and not feel lost. One more season like Season 5, and The Expanse will no longer be special, and the show will not get new audiences because at this point, I wouldn't recommend to anyone to watch a great show become a statement on gender with no direction. I'm going to give The Expanse one more season because I've been reviewing it and because I really supported it in the beginning. But if it has another season like Season 5, and my predictions on the lives of men become true, I can think of better uses of my time than watching this show. That's all I have for today. Thank you for watching. Click like or subscribe or leave a comment below. And as always, in the river of life, don't let yourself get pushed around by the currents. Be yourself, be a stone in the river.